Okay, we're going to be rebuilding this caliper for a 78 Corvette. As you can see, I already have it disassembled. If you don't have yours disassembled, that's okay. Just watch this rebuild process, and all you have to do is reverse the steps to get to the starting point, and we can continue from there. As you can see, I've got the caliper apart already. One of the things that was happening was the caliper was binding and causing uneven wear or pressure on the rotor. So I decided to take the thing apart and see what's going on. And I'm taking a closer look at the pistons in the caliper, and I feel and see slightly raised burrs on the OD, or the outer diameter of these pistons. And I'm thinking, that's probably not good. I should have seen those when I rebuilt it last time, but we're going to take those and file them down or sand them down, because any kind of protrusion on those diameters could cause the pistons to cock inside the bore as they're actuated, and that would not be a good thing. Cause uneven pressure and weird things to happen. So we're going to take some 320 sandpaper here, very gently go around the outer diameter of the piston where those raised burrs are and knock them down. I'm going very carefully, very slowly. I don't want to really take a lot of material off. I'm just looking to knock the high spots off and any burrs or edges that might be raised up. So going around slowly, very light pressure, not going crazy on the thing. Again, just enough to knock those edges down. So feel as you go. It feels like I got most of it off, but now we're going to go at it with a little bit finer sandpaper, just so that the surface is smoother than what's left with the 320 grit. Again, going around very smoothly, very softly, not digging into the piston, just enough force to knock the high spots off. Feel it with your fingertip. If there's anything left, keep going a little bit, but just check every now and then with your fingertip. If you can feel a raised edge, keep going. You don't want that there. All right, that feels pretty good. Gonna wipe off any residue, because we really don't want any of that stuff left over in the parts. That feels good. That's nice. Nice and smooth. That should work a lot better. Okay, I've done the rest of them, and now I'm taking a look at the tops. These are the surfaces that actually contact the back of the pads. They're a little beat up, but you know, this is not a full replace everything that looks quite questionable. We're going to make do with what we have, as long as it's not a safety issue. If it works, it works. So I'm just taking a nice flat board, putting a piece of sandpaper on the board, 400 grit, and pushing down in the center of the piston gently and rotating the piston on the sandpaper. That'll take off any high spots on top of the piston there as well. Again, I'm not looking to get rid of every pit, every blemish. I just don't want any high spots there, which could cause uneven contact on the back of the pad. So that looks pretty good. See those pits? I'm not going to worry about those, as long as there's no high spots. And we'll do the rest of those. And we're going to clean them off, obviously. So now, time to take a look at the the caliper halves themselves. When I rebuilt these last time, I did use sandpaper to clean up the bores, but I don't think that was quite the right way to do that. I should have used a brake hone tool, a brake cylinder hone tool, which is what you see here. It's basically very similar to a cylinder hone tool for an engine, but it's a miniature version. And what it is 3 separate stones on spring-loaded arms, and the stones have a grit to them. You can get different grits, but for this application, they seem to all come with the same grit on them, whatever that might be. And it's designed to be held into a drill, in this case a cordless drill. So you spin the drill, the pads go around, and that goes inside the bore of the cylinders here. And that causes or creates the hone marks. So I use brake fluid as a lubricant. Oh, that one's a brand new jar. We're not going to use that. I have another jar here that's already open. And this one I use specifically for this purpose. I don't use this for actually putting into the car, because you should never use open brake fluid. It tends to absorb moisture, and that's not good for a brake system. So this jar is for this purpose expressly. So I lube up the hone stones and I lube up the insides of the brake bores there, the caliper bores. Pinch the arms closed and then put the honing tool inside the bore of the caliper and rotate it and spin up and down, spin up and down. Try not to do what I just did there, which is pull the tool out too far and the shoes start coming out and angling, which is not ideal. Won't hurt anything, but don't do that a lot. Close-up of the hone. So the right side is what I've done. The left side needs to be done. You can see a slight difference there. Looks better on the side that I've done, obviously. I mean, that's what it's for. It's supposed to put a nice cross hatch into the bore, which helps the seal in the caliper. So now I'm doing this side. It's hard to control the speed with this drill. As you can see or hear, I'm just going faster, slower, faster, slower. As long as you don't go crazy. Oh, and here's an adjustment feature on this. If you find that the stones are not pushing out against the wall hard enough, you can adjust the tension with this knurled knob. The closer you tighten the knurled knob to the shoes, the tighter they will be. So if they're too loose, they're not going to really leave a good pattern. Too tight, it might dig in a little too deep. It's a bit of a trial and error thing, so adjust the thing until you see a nice crosshatch in the bore. I had to tighten mine up a little bit because it was a little too loose. Wasn't putting enough pressure on there. So again, move it up, put them in the bore, spin for a while, move it up and down, move it up and down. So the right side here has not been done. The left side is done. You can see a nice difference in the surface finish and the coloration of the bores. So did both the caliper halves. Now we got to move on to where the caliper halves touch each other or mate up. As you can see, it's kind of rusty there. Surprised to see that much rust because I had taken care of that last time I rebuilt these things. I'm not sure why they rusted so bad. So again, we go over to our board, our nice flat board with a piece of sandpaper on there, and we just go back and forth on the sandpaper. The reason for the board is it keeps it nice and flat and it doesn't impart or introduce any curvature to the surface when you're sanding it like when you do by hand. So again, we're not looking to get rid of the pits, we're just looking to get rid of the surface rust. So as with any brake caliper rebuild or any automotive project, cleanliness is imperative, but especially when you have seals involved. Wipe everything out. Notice that when I wipe things off, I use a new part of the rag. I don't use the same part of the dirty rag over and over. Now we're going to use some brake cleaning parts spray. Feels like it's almost empty. Seems like every time I go to reach for something, it's almost empty. Shake it up, and I'm going to put the nozzle into the hole where the brake fluid comes in. I want to make sure that that passage is not clogged. You ought to see the fluid come out into the bore there. See that? How it's spraying out? That's what you ought to see. That tells you that that passage is not plugged and that there's no crud in there after you've used cleaning fluid to get it out. So same thing on the other half. Yep, there's the cleaning fluid coming out. We're getting all that crud out of there. And same with this side as well. I would have liked to have a little bit more to spray out everything. So I'm spraying the bores and turning the caliper half upside down so that all the stuff drips out, along with all the contaminants that might be in there. And there it is, gone. Gonna have to get some more of that. New cloth, new area. Wipe everything out, make sure it's clean. And in this case, since I've already cleaned the part, I'm not really changing the areas on it. Oh, look at this, what's that? We got some paint coming off. So these calipers were painted with high-vis brake caliper paint, and it flakes off. I wouldn't even bother doing that. Also, we want to take a look at these slate counter bores. This is where the dust shields go in. Make sure those are clean too. No crud in those either. It's important that they're clean. Yeah, back to the paint. Don't bother painting these calipers. This stuff was supposed to be specifically designed for heavy-duty use, and it's just coming off all over the place. I'm really disappointed in this stuff. And to me, it looks worse having been done and coming apart than having not been done at all. That's just my personal preference. But anyway, I want to make sure there's none of that stuff floating around in the passages. So safety glasses. If you don't wear safety glasses, you should. And if you don't wear safety glasses, you definitely should when you're using compressed air, because something someday is going to come flying out at you, and you only got two eyes. You need to take care of them. So be careful when you use compressed air. Again, I'm making sure there's nothing in those passages, blowing clean compressed air into them to make sure they're clean. And another overall clean, just to make sure there's no more paint coming off. But okay, so here's our brake rebuild kit, our caliper rebuild kit. These things come with 4 seals, 4 dust shields, and 2 little O-rings. And you'll see those in just a minute when I get this bag cut open. And there's a couple of the seals, another seal, a dust shield, some more dust shields. All right, so 4 O-rings, 4 dust shields. It's a set for each piston. And careful, do not lose these. They're tiny little O-rings. Put them someplace where they won't get blown away by compressed air, and you'll be able to find them again. All right, so we take our cleaned off piston. We're going to lube it up a little bit with some of our brake fluid. We're going to take a seal and we're going to snap it on. So the orientation is critical on these things. You want to put them on so that the lip of the seal faces down, or the bigger part of the bigger diameter of the piston. And I'll show a close-up photo in a little bit. So we lube up the seal, start it in one spot, and then slowly work it around until it pops in. Okay, it's in, but we're not done yet, and I'll show you why in a little bit. Let's get another seal on the next piston. Same thing, lube it up. Piston as well. Start it in one spot. Oh, this one's giving me a little bit of trouble. There's always one troublemaker in the bunch. Stretch it out. Come on. Oh, for goodness sake. And there we go. It's in. Now, this is critical. Look at the one on the left. The left one is correct. The right one is not correct. Can you see why? The seal has to sit between these surfaces of the piston. What usually happens when you put the seal on is it hangs up on that right little lip, as shown in this photo. The seal on the left is fully seated and correct. The seal on the right is not seated. You see how it's snapped up into place over that lip? Take a close look at that. Pause the video if you have to. Now, to fix that, to make sure that that doesn't happen, because it won't go together right. And if you do get it together, it won't work right. Put the seal on as you did before. Lube it up. Start it. Snap it into place. And when it's snapped into place, hold the piston and turn the seal. Did you hear those little clicks? If you didn't, rewind the video a little bit. You'll hear those little clicks. That means that the seal has snapped correctly into place. Okay, so now we got all the seals put on. We're going to put the pistons into the bores. So I've put my spring on. I lube up the seal a little bit. This is tricky. This is going to take practice if you've never done this before. The trick is to cock the piston slightly so that the seal goes into the bore. Lightly press down on the piston, and with a pick like this, gently, very gently, persuade the seal, fold the seal towards the piston, and rotate, or I should say, as you walk the seal around the bore. Hold the piston down gently. Don't press hard. Just enough to overcome the seal pressure. It's probably a better idea to use some sort of a plastic tool, because one time I did this, I tore the seal. with the pick because they're very gentle. They're very fragile in some respects. So got to be careful. Now, the manual for the Corvette says that you're supposed to put this gasket sealer stuff on the ID of the dust shield. That lip that I'm putting the sealant on actually snaps into the groove that's near the top of the piston. I don't really know if you have to do this, but you know what? If Chevrolet engineers say you should, I'm going to do it. It's really messy though. So anyway, you put the stuff on. I used RTV Maker. I took a 40 millimeter impact socket, which seems to fit the diameter of the seal pretty well. And then I take a dead blow and making sure that the socket is lined up only over the steel ring there that you see, I hammer it into place. Now it never seems to go in all the way, so I'm taking a steel punch with a metal hammer and trying to drive it home completely. But as you can see, it's popping out. Doesn't like that. So I'm trying to hit it in again. Usually one side will get started, and you can see on the right side it looks like it's seated, but the left side is still not seated. Again, I'm taking my hammer and punch and trying to gently tap in the side that won't go in or hasn't gone in. And be careful again here, you have to tap only on the steel part. Do not tap on the rubber. That will tear it. As you can see, I'm having some trouble with this one. It just will not go in. So we're going to change the way we do this. We're going to put the 40 millimeter back on there, but I'm going to use a steel hammer. Steel hammer imparts more shock and more force through the socket to the ring. Now it has gone in. Not completely. I still have to take the hammer and punch and work my way around. Listen to the punch. You hear the difference in sound? The ringing indicates that the seal has been seated completely. If it doesn't ring, it's not seated completely. You got to go a little bit farther. Go ahead and rewind the video a couple of times. You'll hear the difference in the sound the punch makes. Now that that's fully seated, I'm taking another tool very carefully because, as you can see, if you slip, you can punch through that seal and that's junk. That's no good anymore. You're going to have to get another kit. I've seated the top, that ring or that ID that we put the sealant on. It's now in the piston. Make sure it's in completely and seated completely, and then we wipe off the rest of this sealant. And that's what Chevrolet says you should do on these things, so that's what we do. I'm not sure it's necessary, but like again, who am I to argue with the engineers at Chevrolet? So here's a close-up. The dust shield lip is flush with that surface of the caliper. See how they're in the counterbores completely? There's no silver sticking up from the seal anywhere. That's what you want to see. Then check your pistons, make sure they compress and retract or pop back out again. That one's a little tight, but it works. I don't know why that one seems to sound a little different, but it's moving freely, and that's what we want to see. And they weren't cocking. So now it's time to put the two halves together. I've done all 4 pistons. They're ready to be put together. These are the bolts that hold the caliper halves together. Pretty beefy bolts. I'm cleaning the threads off because I'm going to Loctite these things. Loctite likes clean threads. So a little bit of isopropyl alcohol, a clean rag, cleaning off the threads. And you can see there is some crud on there, so it's always a good idea to clean them. Set those to the side. Got to take some more isopropyl alcohol on a clean lint-free towel, and we're going to screw that into the thread, the mating thread of those bolts. We're going to clean those threads out as well. See, pretty dirty. Again, Loctite doesn't like it when it's dirty. Works better when it's clean. And we'll do the other hole as well. Just moisten the towel, thread it in as if it were a screw, and pull it out. And that cleans it pretty good. Want to make sure that dries, so I'm taking my compressed air with safety glasses and making sure that those threads are dry. You don't want to contaminate the Loctite with isopropyl alcohol. First though, before we put the halves together, There's our little O-rings. I put a light coat of oil, brake fluid on the O-ring and set it in place. I hope you haven't lost them, because I'll tell you, first time I did this, I lost them. Must have blasted them with some compressed air and they went flying who knows where. So there they are in place. Now we're going to take our other half, carefully line it up by eye, because we do not want to dislodge those O-rings. They have to sit nicely in their little counter bores. If they come out of there, you're going to cut them, squash them, distort them, and it will not seal. Now I'm putting one bolt in without Loctite, just to get it started, to hold the caliper in place on that side so it doesn't shift. Now I'm going to take some Loctite. I'm using blue here, but guess what? There's another thing I'm out of. Okay, so no more blue Loctite. Gonna have to use some red. Red is really high strength. I'm reluctant to use it, but I tell you what, I don't count on having to take these apart again, and I would rather have something stronger than weaker when it comes to holding brake calipers together, so red Loctite it is. I think this is a 5/8 socket, and I tried using an impact, but it won't fit because the wall of the impact socket is too thick to fit on there. So just a regular thin-walled socket goes on just fine. Tightening it down by hand. And now I'll take the other bolt out and put some Loctite on that one and put it back in. A little too much on one side. Let's wipe some of that off and put it on the other side. Probably would have worked its way around, but whatever. So in it goes, 5/8 thin wall. Using a regular 1/2-inch drive ratchet just to tighten them down until they're seated. We'll have to get the old torque wrench out and torque those down because there is a spec for those. All right, so let's get our torque wrench. Oh yeah, first we're going to double check. Looks like everything's lined up correctly. The O-rings didn't pop out. I think we're good to go. So torque wrench set to 130 foot-pounds, which is quite a bit. I did this on the bench. You're going to have to hold the caliper the way I have it on the bench to take advantage of leverage, but it's not easy to do this, and in retrospect I will do this a different way next time. Well, there's the click. So okay, we got one done. Let's flip this thing over so again we can take advantage of the caliper on the table leveraging itself correctly. Next time, I'm just going to tighten these things down and put it on, not completely, and put the caliper on the spindle. Then I'll torque them, because I wrenched my back doing this. I pulled something in my back. It's not easy.
Pulled my back.
As you can hear, I'm complaining about my back. So again, next time we're going to put the caliper on the spindle in the car and torque those down while it's in the car, because it's held nicely in place. All right, giving it a good wipe, clean off. Again, that paint just will not stop coming off. Doesn't that look great? Looks really good. All right, one more blow off. Safety glasses. Now we're going to attach the hose. There is a copper crush washer between the caliper and the hose, and that's it right there. I don't like to use those over again. Once they've been used, they've been crushed. I know that there's videos on YouTube where people heat them up with MAP gas and whatever. You know what? They're cheap enough. I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to replace the thing. Better insurance, in my opinion. So I'm trying to find one where the ID and the OD are a good match to what was on there before. And the one that I've picked, the OD is a little smaller. The ID seems about the same, so that'll work. In goes the hose. We'll tighten that up once it's in the car, because there's really no good way to do that here. Same as when we were torquing down the big bolts. Now we put the pads in. Make sure your hands are clean. Do not get any oil on the friction surface of the pad. I'm making sure that the pistons are still free floating. They're moving in and out. and the springs are pushing the pads out, which is what we want. All right, I'm flipping the thing over. Notice, let the hose hang off the edge of the table. You do not want the hose bent on the table. That's a stress point for the hose. It's not good to do with brake hoses. So let it hang off the edge of the table so there's no stress on the hose at all. Pads are in. This pin holds the pads in the caliper. That's all. It's a very interesting design. And the pads slide along that pin. So pin goes in the caliper, through one pad, through the second pad, through the caliper, and the pin is held in place with this little spring-loaded clip. On it goes. Okay, and that's it. I double check to make sure that the pads are still floating freely. They are. If they're binding, something's wrong, and you're going to have to take it apart and take a look. Now, to get this caliper on is a real pain. What I've done is cut myself a piece of 2x4 that's a little over 1.25 inches high. And what I do is stuff this between the pads to help hold them open, because those springs want to close them up, close that space up. That block of wood in there helps hold those pads open so that we can get them around the rotor. If you don't do this, you're going to need another person, and even with another person, it's hard to get all 4 hands in there at the same time. So now I'm going to put the caliper on. I'm checking the rotor, making sure it's not dirty, no oil on it. And it's loose. That's right. We got to do something about that. That's not going to help us at all, trying to get the caliper on. So what I'm going to do is take a couple of lug nuts, put them on, just snug them down, and that will hold the rotor in place for us, because if that's floating, you're going to have a really, really hard time getting the caliper on. That needs to be held in place. And again, just snug them down so that there's no play in it. We want it not moving. There. Perfect. Okay. Now we can get our caliper onto the rotor without too much trouble. Carefully bring the caliper to the rotor. Watch the hose. Push a little bit on the pad to get them spread open enough to get over the rotor. And once they are over the rotor, you can get rid of that block. Take one of your caliper mounting bolts, line it up, try to get it started, which sometimes is easier said than done. So I think I have it started. Feels like it started, but it wasn't. You'll see later. Anyway, I'll take the second one, put that in its hole, move the caliper around until I can feel the bolt engage its mating hole. And always, always, always start your screw or bolt with your fingers. You must always do this. Make a habit of that. If you think you've got it started and it hasn't been started and you put a wrench to it, there's a good chance that you are going to ruin your thread. You're going to cross thread something. You must always make sure that the bolt has been started by hand. And see here, I did not get it started correctly. I must not have had it lined up right. So I'm going to loosen that first one that I did. Move the caliper around a little bit. Try to get that second bolt started correctly. And again, make sure that you get your bolt started 2 or 3 turns. That ensures that you have not cross-threaded anything, and then you can take a wrench to it. I can't tell you how many threads I've wrecked over the years as a younger mechanic because I didn't make sure it wasn't cross-threaded first. Now I'm just snugging these up with a regular old ratchet. These have to get torqued as well. I can't remember what the torque was. You can look that up with chat or your favorite manual. But on goes the torque wrench. Not much room to throw the wrench back and forth, but you know, you'll get there. I'm snugging up the first one. I didn't torque it down all the way. I want to snug up the second one, and I'll torque that one. There it goes. And now I'll go back to the first one and I'll torque that one fully. And there it goes. Okay, that's torqued down. Now we're going to take a line wrench. I think it was 5/8. I don't remember. And I'm going to tighten up the brake line that we put on earlier with the new crush washer. And I don't know what the torque is for this, but I just tighten the hell out of the thing. I want to make sure there's no leaks there. I want to make sure that copper washer gets crushed correctly. And sorry about the camera auto-focusing like this. I'm not sure what the deal is. It doesn't like me coming in and out of the frame, I guess. And that's tight. All right. There's not going to be any leaks there. So the next thing to do is to attach the hose to the steel brake line. You have to fit the hose up through that bracket, put that mounting clip on, and again, start the thread from the steel fitting into the line by hand, especially on these. It's very difficult. It might take some time, but you got to start it by hand and then tighten that down really tight. Now we got to bleed these things. So this is typically the correct order in which to bleed your brakes. Make sure that they're bled properly. You start with the wheel furthest from the master cylinder. In this case, it's number 1, right rear. And then you move on to the next furthest, which will be number 2, driver's side rear in the States, and so on. And once that's done, you go to number 3, which is the front right, and lastly, you go to number 4. That makes sure that any error in the line gets purged correctly. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. As you know, we had to rebuild the caliper on this thing because it was binding a little bit. So we got to bleed the brakes again. Master cylinder, make sure it's clean on top. If it's all crowded up, you want to get that stuff off first. You don't want that falling into the brake fluid. And on this car, it has these metal spring clips that sit in these little notches on the cover. You have to take a screwdriver, just carefully bend that, pry it up. Don't stick the screwdriver in far. Keep it sort of close like this, just a little bit, gives you a little bit more leverage. And you can move that off to the side. This gets pulled up and out, and yeah, it's a little bit low on both sides. All right, so you can see when the fluid drops in the reservoir, these rubber boots tend to get sucked down. What you got to do is carefully fold them back into shape, like so, like that. All right, and this one too. There's 2, one for the front chamber, one for the rear chamber. Fold that in like so. Very good. Okay, now we're going to get some fluid and fill these containers up, these reservoirs up. All right, we got some fresh fluid here. Just open this up. Going to fill that up to about 1/4 inch or so away from the, oh, I got a little bit too much in there, but that's going to be going away because we're going to bleed these brakes. But about 1/4 inch from the top is fine. Close the cap so you don't spill this stuff, because I'll tell you right now, any kind of paint that you spill this on is going to go away. It is the world's best paint stripper. Always put a towel or something down that won't let the brake fluid hit paint. Be careful. Okay, snap the cover back into place and we'll start bleeding. All right, here's our brake fluid bleeder from Harbor Freight. We don't use the air pressure feature of this thing. We basically just use this hose, which will clip onto the bleeder screw on the caliper, and we just press and pump the brakes. It's a 2-man operation. I prefer this. It works a little bit better in my opinion. One person sits in the car, pumps the brakes, holds the brake pedal down. The other operator opens the bleeder valve, lets the fluid drain out, closes the bleeder screw, and the person in the car starts pumping again. And then you just repeat that until you get no sponginess in the pedal. Let's try it out. Okay, so we got our 8mm socket on there with a wrench. We typically do this just to loosen it up because we don't seem to have the right open end or box end to fit on this thing, and I want to round this bleeder screw off because it's very small, it's very fragile. So we just use this guy on here to crack that open, and then we'll snug it just a little bit, and we'll get our wrench on there and our hose. All right, pumping.
Pumping.
1, 2, 3, 4, down.
Open and close.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Open. Close.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Open. Close.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Open. Close. We are tapping the caliper to dislodge any small air bubbles that may be trapped within the passages.
Alright. Pumped up.
Opening and closing, not seeing as many bubbles.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Open. Close.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Open. Close. Should we check the fluid in the master cylinder?
Yes. How's the stream looking?
Stream's looking strong. I don't see that many bubbles. I think we're almost there.
Alright, ready?
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Open and close.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Open, close. I think we're there.
One more time.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Open, close. We're good. No bubbles.
Alright, so now it's time to take the hose off. Again, be careful that you don't get this stuff all over the place. We're letting it drain into the container so it doesn't get all over the place. Bleeder screw is tightened up. We're going to put the wheels back on. But first we're going to check the fluid in the reservoir one more time. Alright, we're checking the fluid one more time. We'd already filled it once during the pumping process because it did drop significantly. But we want to make sure that the fluid level is up. And how's that cap look? Did the boot pull down a little bit? No, not really. Okay. You can expect that to be pulled down. That fluid level looks fine. I'd say we're good there. But during the pumping process, you need to check that every few pumps or so because the fluid will go down and those rubber boots will be pulled back into the reservoir. Just make sure you get that fluid level correct because if you run out of fluid, you've just reintroduced air into the lines again, and you're going to have to start from scratch. Clean everything up one more time, make sure there's no brake fluid floating around, and we're good to go.